Chapter 28. Closing of the Act. 9th hour, 25th day, 5th month, 807 post-Heavenfall. "What time is your flight?" Barnov asked, in between her chewing of a mouthful of pancakes. 12th hour at the 50th minute, Ariya replied, after gulping down her own bite of food. She and some of her colleagues were enjoying one last breakfast together before departing for the summer. "All packed up?" "For the most part. I got a few things to put away, but it's mostly all ready to go." "Must be nice to be able to fly," Emtak muttered. "You're not taking an airship back to Cogheim. It's so far away," Ariya exclaimed. The Dracokin shook his head. "Nope. I don't have airship ticket money. I need to save for spell and potion crafting supplies. Luckily, I'm just going to stay up here and work on some research." Although Ariya could have purchased the tickets herself, her parents had already done so for her. At 82 years old, the fact they still spoiled her was something she was embarrassed to admit. "Is Oriana going to stay with you too?" Barnov wondered. "Hells no. I'm taking the train back to Zendarim and then I'm going to take a relaxing vacation in Decaron. I'm not missing the nice beach weather, so Emtak will have to spend the break missing me," the Inferni said, before giving Emtak a playful peck on the cheek. "I'll probably come down for a week," he commented. "Probably? What do you mean, probably?" Oriana scowled. "I'll definitely come down for a week." "That's better," she purred contentedly, while leaning into Emtak's shoulder. "What about you, Zarin?" "I'm taking the train too. Going home to Chesawick, so it won't be that far of a ride. The beaches there aren't as tourist-friendly, though. The waters are much colder and the waves are pretty rocky. And there's more sea predators," Barnov noted. "That too," Zarin acknowledged. "But it's a fun place for fishing, and it has some bit of fame for its seafood. Speaking of which, I don't think I told anyone about the time I partnered with Icthriri to help them hunt a giant squid." "What are those?" Barnov inquired. "Icthriri, or squids?" Emtak asked in jest. "Icthriri. I'm not that stupid." The Dracokin gave a hearty giggle before giving a brief explanation. "They're fish folk, basically." "So, like mermaids?" "Kind of, but they still have legs, and they look like fish all over, rather than just the lower half." "A couple of years ago," Zarin continued, "I was working with my father and his crew to chase after a massive giant squid, which coincidentally was the same one a tribe of Icthri was after. At first, we raced against them to catch it first, and somehow ended up working together to bring it closer to the surface. Even with both our efforts combined, it was still a harrowing experience, since it put up a tough fight and even hurt a couple of the tribesmen. We chose to let the squid go to help the Icthri, and they seemed grateful for the aid. I didn't understand their language, but I think they said they would be open to hunting together in the future." "Did you ever meet them again?" Ariya asked. Zarin shook his head. "Maybe one day. If I'm lucky, I'll see them while I'm back home." "How big is Chesawick?" Barnov inquired. "I wonder if it's about the same as Carlisle." "It's got a couple hundred people, if you don't count the ones living nearby. The main town itself is about a 20-minute walk from one side to the other. Carlisle is even smaller because it's mostly surrounded by farms. I do miss all the space, though. Ovyliax is fine, but I feel claustrophobic from time to time. It's nice stepping out the door and not being a few feet from the neighbours. I'd be happy to show you all around if you ever visit. It's nice to get away from civilization and see the mountains, especially during the winter. We get more visitors when it's colder, since they come for sledding and skiing." "That sounds like a really fun option for the end of the year," Oriana beamed. "I don't like the cold, but I'll come out to play in the snow." "Assuming we survive to live that long," Barnov joked dryly. The quip was not received well. "It's been quite a semester, hasn't it?" Zarin said. "Not everyone made it," Ariya said solemnly. "I learned we lost over a fifth of the cohort who started with us. Most of them quit or had a major injury and couldn't continue. There were a few deaths, too. Do you all remember Alinor de Grey? Barnoff asked. We were supposed to go out on a date, but he was killed on a field exercise, apparently swarmed by undead. We had a couple fall in our group too, Emtak added. Vim Rexod lost his leg to a booby trap, and Chop... Well, I don't even want to remember how she died. At least we learned much to survive, Ariya commented, trying to alleviate the sullen mood. We'll keep their memories with us as we push further to become Sentinels. Those who still had a drink raised their cups. What time is it? Oriana asked. Just turned into the 10th hour, the Dracokin confirmed after pulling out his pocket watch. Time to go. The Inferni quickly stood up and downed the rest of her coffee. Come on, Emtak. Yep, coming. See you all next month. I have to go play pack mule for Oriana. I have to get going too. I still have to pack, Barnov sighed. You haven't packed, Ariya gasped as Barnov quickly walked away without answering. The elf shook her head in exasperation and turned her attention to Zarin. When are you leaving for home? I booked my train ticket to depart at night, so I have plenty of time. I can keep you company until it's your turn to go. Ariya noticed his tone timidly softened in the latter sentence. I'd like that, she said, with a heartwarming smile, to which Zarin immediately reflected back. Their final moments together rolled on faster than either of them would have liked, and Ariya eventually found it was time to depart from the academy. After gathering her trunk and tying the Jian to the sash around her waist, both Zarin and Ariya walked through the streets where the ebb and flow of crowds returned to the shops and restaurants for the beginning of midday luncheon. Lines began to form behind store counters and market stalls, while patrons took to outdoor seating to enjoy the weather with their meal. The buzz of conversations grew in density as work and industry paused in favour of food and good company. Even though breakfast was not long ago, the aroma of meat being grilled and bread being baked caught Ariya and Zarin's attention and gave them pauses of curiosity. It'll be an adjustment, the elf quietly commented as they passed by the terraces. What will? Zarin asked. Sorry, I must have said what I was thinking out loud, she said with mild embarrassment. I meant returning back to Eden will be an adjustment. The tempo of life here is not as rushed, and lunch is always a chance for peace with good food and company. I could imagine. Every city has its charms and differences, and I do appreciate the somewhat more relaxed pace here. Still, I've always been curious to visit Eden. It sounds like an incredible place from what I've heard. I'd be happy to show you around, Ariya invited. Although all the teleportation circles might be a bit jarring to get used to, I'd eat lightly the first day. Reminds me of seasickness. On a similar note, she remarked, it's unfortunate I don't have time for another meal. I'll sadly have to settle for whatever they serve on the airship. It's also a shame I never got a chance to cook you anything, Zarin lamented. I was curious what you would think. Dangerous to be asking the daughter of a renowned chef what they would think of one's cooking, the elf teased. I'm only joking. I would have been excited to try, and I promise I wouldn't be critical. No, by all means, please be as honest as you can. I want to improve and make it something you would really enjoy. Well, if you insist, what would you make to impress me? Ariya asked, with a hand under her chin, exaggerating a look of sophistication. Probably seafood. If I was home, I would catch something fresh and work with it as the main ingredient. Maybe something with risotto. I should try to fish in the bay here when we come back. It would be a fun challenge to cook with whatever is around here. If you can make it happen, I'll bring a dessert, she offered with a wink. Their pleasant dialogue continued on in tandem with the footsteps they took. Even as the time between words grew as their conversations naturally tapered off, Ariya was content she had Zarin to join her on this short journey. She found his presence grounding and helped calm the bittersweet feelings that had been churning within. Ariya had longed to return to Eden and see her family and the familiar sights of pearl and silver towers. Yet she also grew deeply fond of Ovyliax, which tugged at her heart with each step forward. Still, with Zarin near leading the way, Ariya had someone to encourage her to keep moving forward. Home was now 2 places for her, and she would be forever divided on where she would wish to be. Eventually, their paths crossed into the shadow of a great spire towering over the city, and they stood at its base. An airship hovered high above, preparing to dock with the walkway extending out of the top of the tower. At the bottom, travellers came and went as they passed through the iron gates of the terminal. "Here we are," Zarin announced as he returned the trunk he had been pulling for Ariya. "Here we are," the elf repeated ruefully. Her eyes wandered around, looking at the Gothic architecture, the statues, gargoyles, and angels of stone. They were sights she had grown accustomed to, but no less grand and impressive as the day she first arrived. Yet it was the people who truly made her feel most welcome. Their honest sincerity, resilience, wisdom, and genuine kindness were qualities she hoped would remain as timeless as the old walls themselves. "Do you see something interesting on the roof?" Zarin asked, looking in the same direction. "I see many interesting things," she quipped with a smile. "I'm honestly just saying thank you and goodbye to the city one more time." Ariya's gaze lowered back to her friend. "I wanted to thank you too, for everything. I don't think I would have survived the academy without you, and I mean that literally." Zarin grinned sheepishly. "You kept me alive too, and helped me back on my feet. I don't think I could have asked for a better partner. I hope we'll still be together next semester." The elf stepped forward and extended her arms out as Zarin reflexively did the same. They pulled each other into a deep and warming embrace that lingered far longer than how mere colleagues would. The joy of finally being physically close, mixed with the sadness of having to depart, made Ariya's eyes water. Zarin sensed the turmoil in her subtle movements and whispered, "I'll write to you." Ariya pulled back and chuckled despite her reddened eyes. "You should master that risotto before we meet again. Just don't put yourself in too much danger hunting sea monsters. I won't be there to save you again. Hopefully the IC3 will be around if I'm in any real danger. Either way, I'll have that recipe ready for next time we see each other." Sounds like a great plan. The clang of the airship's docking mechanism signalled their time was up, and the elf hesitantly stepped back. "Looks like I should go. Thank you again, Zarin, and goodbye." "Goodbye, Ariya. Be safe, and I'll see you next month." She gave a departing bow and turned away before walking toward the terminal with the trunk in hand and Zarin watching her every step. Yet right before she stepped through the doors, she heard his voice shout, "Hey, Ariya! Wait a moment!" She turned around and was startled to see he had rejoined her. "Before you go, there was something I just remembered. There's going to be a soiree among both the Sentinels and candidates sometime in the next semester. I was wondering if you wanted to join me for it." Ariya smiled radiantly. "Only if your cooking turns out good," she answered. As the airship ascended higher towards the clouds, Ariya watched the buildings and towers of Ovyliax shrink with every passing second from the window of her cabin. Her quarters was a third of the size of the one she had travelled on with High Councillor Marikoth, yet was still comfortable enough for a multi-day journey. Eventually, the capital passed leftward as the ship flew over the developing outskirts of the city and blended into the wider scenery of rolling hills and farm fields. While surveying the landscape, the elf suddenly noticed a large object on the ground, slowly creeping into view. It was a dormant airship, with plates of metal encasing both the hull and parts of the envelope, while bristling with guns and cannons. The vista panned eastward, and more vessels revealed themselves, until over 100 could be counted across the fields. The armada varied in sizes and styles, of the different commanderies' craftsmanship, with the bulk of them being Algarthan ships, uniformly adorned like lightly armoured knights. Ariya also saw the familiar, sleek and elegant ships of Edenvalia, and a motley of eclectic types she assumed were from the free cities of Parsano. Despite the differences in designs, all were united under the same purpose: war. Thousands of miles away to the west, two individuals approached a throne that was occupied by a bald and eagle-faced man wearing a sharp crown of platinum. Beneath a massive banner depicting a dragon of 8 heads, the pair lowered themselves to the stone floor and kneeled before the king. "Rise, my friends, and come forth," Severus Locke beckoned. The guests stood up and stepped toward the monarch. One of them wore scholarly robes of crimson and held a small wooden box, while the other was dressed in a patchwork of garish colours and sported a porcelain mask with a blank expression. They were High Philosopher Yukai Moff and the Solitaire. "It's been quite a while since I've seen you all," King Locke began. "Your arrival is unexpected, but a very welcome change from the usual letters and missives. I take it you have exciting news to share?" "Indeed, my king," the Solitaire replied. "It is as the reports confirm. Mistoria has mobilized their forces and are imminently preparing to deploy them north across the sea. The commitment of forces has exceeded expectations. I've prepared a summary of their official numbers in this document." They passed a scroll to one of the royal guards, who then handed it to Locke. The king broke the seal and unfurled it. As his eyes skimmed through the tabulated counts of manpower, his lips curled wider and wider until breaking open into a grin and exhaling a hearty and amused chuckle. "To say your network has oversold the threat of the aboleths is an understatement." Hegemon Victrix initially had doubts about the need for such a strong response. However, the provincial and prefecture leadership pressured him to mobilize more for a swifter end. Paranoia and vainglory are easy things to stoke. "So we're ready then. When the Mistorians are embattled, we can strike." "That's what our timeline expects," High Philosopher Moth answered. "The spell has some final touches to be incorporated, and we are completing the final tests to ensure our benefactor's safety. Other than that, it's been proven to work within acceptable error rates on Sophonts." "Yes, your genius made the heist on Argent Holdings possible," Locke complimented. "And their gold certainly bought the greed off the more impatient mercenaries. The Black Scorpions proved invaluable in their bravery to test the methods. If only the other companies were as efficient as them. What of our stock of harvested arc? Would you still have enough by the time our operation begins?" "Yes, my king. More than enough, actually." The deliveries had continued, despite already achieving a surplus, and we've successfully begun to breed our own crop to replicate the Coven's ancient methods. Matter of fact, I brought a sample of our own batch as a gift to you." Moth lowered his head and extended both arms out to offer the box. Rather than wait for the guard to pass the box to him, Locke stood up from his seat and eagerly approached the pair. His battle-scarred and calloused hands reached out to unlock the clasp and lift the lid. Light suddenly emanated from the revealed object and painted the immediate surroundings scarlet. With a devilish smile, the king reached inside and held up a vial containing a worm-like parasite. "The best is yet to come," he declared,